Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, Defying Gravity so your team can soar at altitude, with host Marshall Goldsmith, Executive Coach Randy Swaim.
Well, hello. Once again, this is Marshall Goldsmith, Certified Executive Coach Randy Swaim, and the founder of Coaching for Relevance, and starting with my radio show for this episode that is an organizational maneuverability radio show, which talks about leading in challenging and perhaps unpredictable environments. And once again, for our third episode today, I'm very honored to have Steve Wood on the show today. As I mentioned in a couple of the previous episodes, he's a fellow neuroplastician, a fellow neuroscience expert, so to speak, and that's kind of what we're bringing on this series. So I'm very honored to have him on. And Steve, welcome, and take a minute and just sort of introduce yourself if you'd do that.
Hey Randy, how you going? Good to catch up again.
Good deal.
Well, I think I'll probably just keep on repeating the same thing. I'm Steve. I'm down in Sydney, Australia, and I've had a career sort of over a number of years. I started off in engineering, and then I spent most of the time in TV, and then eventually became a TV executive producer, mainly in the area of sport.
Wow!
And it was through that experience that I was able to meet, well, over the years, plenty of elite athletes and TV presenters, hosts, and it struck me that some of the ones that were outstanding had all the skills of the top level professionals, for some reason just didn't quite make it. So I mean, a whole range of people that seem to have the same ability. And when you think about it, Randy, it's the same with sport in America. Everybody that gets into an elite level of sport all have very, very similar skills. It doesn't matter whether you're driving a NASCAR or you're in NFL. To get to that level, you've got to be a high standard. But then the question is why, and this is the question I asked myself, was why is it some stand out and the others just seem to be just getting by at that level? And after lots of chats and interviews with these guys, I discovered it was all the way they thought, what they believed in themselves. So that's really the thing that's led me down this path, and I just find it absolutely fascinating, and I love digging deep into it.
And that's very aligned with what I think the basic comment and the basic insight that you want to bring today is very aligned, because it's when you got to look at what is it that separates you from the top. And one of the things that I learned in my college and ROTC and all that journey as I grew to what I've accomplished and everything, what I realized and what I used to tell people is simply this, that the higher you go, the harder the competition is. And what's it going to take for you to excel, kind of thing. And it's sort of aligned with a little bit about what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm going to try and touch on that particular point that you just made, in today's chat. But if you're ready to get going, I think over the last couple of episodes, we've spoken about the subconscious and the conscious minds.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we got together, we spoke about autopilot, how we need this routine of thinking and behaving. And today's topic sort of dovetails with that, and they call it the terror barrier. Now, lots of people haven't heard about the terror barrier, but it's just a term that's given to this imaginary boundary that we set ourselves that describes the hurdle or the resistance that we encounter when we're attempting to go beyond our comfort zones. So,
and it's interesting that you say that, because just in a line point of that, one of the things that I've seen so often in my journey is people, when they get to the point that you're talking about right here, they have a tendency to just making excuses rather than really accomplishing and stuff. And so it's kind of interesting with that. They just make excuses about why maybe something's not working or something. So it's just something that I've seen a lot in my journey.
And you know what? I think you make a really interesting point. And one of the things that I was going to say at the beginning is that
cool.
It's people listening to this. They don't need to get overwhelmed with the term neuroscience. Like, it's not to do with taking the top off your head and seeing what's inside.
That's right.
It's just very simply understanding what we're doing on a daily basis, how we're behaving, how we're being triggered. Are we reaching our goals? Are we sort of down in the dumps and don't know what to do? But this idea that when we get to the boundary or the limits of what we're used to, like when we're contained within this comfort zone, and quite often these little triggers, it could be, at work, the boss says, we need you to step up. We know you're a great technician, but we now want you to become a manager or a leader. We feel like you need to, technology is advancing so fast, we need you to go back and study so you can improve your skills. And that's exactly what happens. The point that you were making is people start the internal chatter. Oh, I don't think I'm good enough. Gee, I'm past the study thing. I find it hard to learn. I don't think I really want to, I don't want to be a good man. All these excuses start coming up. And the reality is that you can be anything you want to be. Now, people, shrug their shoulders when they hear that. But my viewpoint is that all it is just training the brain, making connections in the brain. And you can experiment with that just by starting on a Monday and going, I'm going to learn something today, or I'm going to, fine tune a skill by the end of the week. You can learn an amazing lot, or you can train your brain very quickly in 3 or 4 or 5 days. But getting back to the terror barrier, is that we all have this feeling. It represents the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty that arises when we approach this threshold of the unknown. It's really about the unknown, and it's trying to step outside of that familiar territory. And if you think about it, like, we've just got everything that you've done, it could be, relationships, it could be career, it could be finances, it doesn't really matter, but you've got a map. You've got a wide map inside your brain about what you think you're capable of. And if you think about it, if you want an analogy for this, it's like, imagine a sporting field, and that sporting field represents everything that you're used to doing. It represents your familiar world. And you're happy playing in that every day of the week. But then you get pushed to the outer boundaries of it, and you've got to open the gate or the fence that's on that boundary line that's encompassing that field, and you're asked to step outside of it and go somewhere else. Go to the field down the road, go and play somewhere else. And you go, no, I'm safe here.
And it's interesting with what you're saying there. I mean, I think I've shared this one time before, but I've had a lot of people ask me one of these days when I'm going to retire, and my answer is always the same when I take my last breath, because I look at them and I say, because I'm just like somebody, like you said, an athlete who's in a race or something. When do you stop? When you're beyond the finish line, kind of thing. And as I tell them, I'm going to run through the tape and it's kind of like what you're talking about there.
Oh,
But a lot of people don't realize that and aren't even aware of that.
Look, we could take we could take a side path here for a little while, but you make a really good point, and I feel exactly the same. And some of the research says that people can be totally healthy. But as they get to, is the retirement age? Is there an official retirement age in the States? Is it 65 or something?
I think it totally varies. It depends on the industry for sure.
So, but, I think in Europe and particularly in Australia, 65 is the big year that everybody looks forward to retiring, and people can be healthy up to and just before that point, but as soon as they start relating that age to retirement and then looking around at what what retirement looks like, they start using the language of, oh well, it's when you get to that age, it's the time when you've got to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement. It's when you stop or when you go traveling. But the most important thing is that you got to have a great diet. You've got to have you've got to continue to learn, because that's the thing that keeps the brain active. Exercise is the thing that keeps the blood not only flowing through your body, but it stimulates the brain as well. So that's just a little bit of a side note. But getting back to your point that you made earlier, Andy, was this this problem of when most people get experience the terror barrier. They end up with two choices. They either go back to safety, back to the familiar, or they push through the fear and remain in the pursuit of that goal. And so I would say that anybody that is experienced this, if you can just settle for a while, because there's actually an opening here for you to achieve extraordinary things, because the field gets diluted a little bit, because most people will turn away when they hit the terror barrier. There's only a few left standing. So if you've got the courage just to push through the fear, and quite often the fear just drops away, you can make extraordinary progress.
If I could just kind of interject and share one thing with that, because you're right, you're totally right. And but one of my newest blogs, and also one of the next TVNN radio shows that I'm going to be on, I'm going to be talking about the truthful picture of perseverance. And it's not just about controlling everything around you. It's being, and this is kind of what you're hinting at there. It's staying engaged and walking forward and breaking through that terror barrier and stuff. But that doesn't just come through your control freak stuff.
Yeah. And look, I keep on using this as my, from my own experience. I don't really like, I study a lot, but I always like to try and make it relevant to my own experience, because if you've experienced it yourself, you know really what it's like. And so the other key thing, if people are listening to this and taking notes, is that if you find that yourself in this terror barrier, then just stop for a moment, because you'll notice that it's not this one particular thing. It will be something that reoccurs in your life, maybe in a different form. And whatever that obstacle is, whatever that fear is, will start manifesting itself in your life. It's a well-known fact that whatever whatever your level of consciousness is, whatever you're aware of, then just manifests itself in your life. So if you don't think that you are capable or deserve of earning more than what you're earning now, then you won't. Even if your boss comes to you and says, you've done an outstanding job, here's another $50,000 a year, you'll sabotage yourself and you'll make a bad investment, or you'll waste the money, or you'll get rid of that money so that you come back to the level that you're comfortable with. And it happens with a whole range of different things. But so my point is, just for a moment before you say, no, I'm not going to do this, there's an opportunity to probably break a long-term pattern.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because it's not just about, going off and studying or
that's right,
getting a different qualification. It's a connected fear that will play out in other areas of your life.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question. Just when you got somebody maybe that that's being restricted or imprisoned or hemmed in, if you will, by that terror boundary, what are some evidences that they should be aware of, or when they sense that happening to them? Because you know what, and you're kind of implying this totally right, because every one of us could run into that as a holding us back. So how would you kind of recommend to somebody that they would probably have a sense of how they know in their mind or in their what they're doing and their experience of when that terror boundary is holding them back?
Look, I think the one key thing that I've discovered over the years that I think has been most valuable for me is this inner talking, what we say to ourselves. From the time we wake up in the morning, there's chat going on in our head.
Yeah.
And, look, forget about, affirmations and hypnosis. And the fact is, whatever we're saying to ourselves on a daily basis, we're hypnotizing ourselves. If we're saying, oh, this is going to be hard, oh, I don't think I can do this, oh, I'll never be able to make it, I'll never earn it, whatever, I'm not good enough. If that message is playing over and over and over again in your mind, that's exactly what. And so my key point to your question, Randy, is stop. Just stop and listen. Listen to what you're saying to yourself. And all it is just changing. You're already talking to yourself. You're talking yourself out of it. So one of the first steps is just change that in a chat.
Okay.
You don't have to. You can start with small steps, by asking questions like, well, what would it feel like if I did this? Or, what would the steps be if I did this? Or what if I just earned, a little bit more money? Or, it could be around relationships. It could be around anything.
Yeah.
And you just need to, firstly, become aware of what you're talking to yourself, because what I find is quite often is that people will tell a story to their friends or the rest of the world, and I say, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. I can see the problem. What are you telling yourself when you put your head on the pillow at night?
Yeah.
What are you telling yourself? What's in a chat? And that's the chat that you need to fix.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and it's not going to happen overnight. But once again, we're going down another little path here. But the best time to do it is when you do have your head on the pillow at night and you go to sleep. If you can go to sleep with some new messaging in your mind, it helps reprogram the subconscious mind. So,
and it's key to help people, particularly if you have yourself or you have people that you work with, that you have a sense that that's happening to either you or to them. How are you going to have that clarity to know what that is. And like you said, some of the questions that you would ask yourself or ask your colleague or whatever, to help them get a sense of what that really looks like with me right now, and how's that holding me back, and why am I letting it,
And well, I suppose the next tip after that is to make sure you connect or you surround yourself with people that inspiring. That say, you know what, Steve, you're more than capable of doing that. And you know what, I've had many people say to me years later, you're an inspiration to us, or I've had people, when I first went to uni, someone just made a passing comment, Steve, you'd be able to do that easily. And it just stopped me in my tracks. And
yeah.
went, oh, maybe I could.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it, because I always, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough or whatever. But within a week, I found a uni and I went and enrolled and I was away. It can happen that.
Yeah, it can be that simple sometimes. I mean, the question that can totally revolutionize somebody's picture in their mind. Yeah. Sometimes those questions can be so simple, and getting people to kind of have a sense of that. And then I would say too, and you can kind of expand on this or comment on it, but once they determine that, it's okay, what's going to take you to kind of step across and walk through the boundary on this and break it and move on, kind of thing. And so that's probably the next question you might consider in somebody like that, to have that conversation. But it's interesting what you're saying, for sure.
And of course, my own experience, once I made that step, I stepped into a world that I hadn't been before, and I just met amazing people, and I stood there a lot of the time with my mouth open, just going, wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that it would be like this, that I could absorb and interact with people that were so knowledgeable and inspiring.
And it's interesting when I think about a couple of the generals and the high up people that I served with in the military, people that if I mentioned their names, everybody would know them probably, that, kind of thing. And one of the things that I tell people is that I didn't develop from anything they ever told me. I learned from what I observed in what they did and how they did it and how they interacted with their teams, how they led their teams, and how they kind of built all of this up. And it's kind of like you're saying, if you got that, tribulation kind of, boundary in there, that can be overcome. And I've actually had a couple of times where I've told people that they were talking about, there was this struggle. And I said, I struggled with that years ago. And they looked at me like, what? And I said, let me tell you something. If I overcame it, you can. Kind of thing. So it's kind of a big part of that to some extent.
And to that point again, the other thing too sometimes is, when you're in a bit of a huff, you just worthwhile taking the attention off yourself and becoming aware of the people around you and acknowledging the people around you. It's amazing how you can connect with people just by going, you know what, well done today, great job. You obviously really got to mean it. Lots of people say it, and it doesn't connect. But when you look at someone in their eyes and say, you know what, you're just outstanding. It's incredible what you've achieved. Wow, that's when things start. You really start attracting to you the energy that you need to start moving forward.
And it's interesting because you kind of implied this, for sure, correctly so, in my judgment. It's not because you told them what to do. It's because you connected with them in such a way that they began to see the image and the picture and the understanding that they didn't have before. And that's very key when you're talking about, connecting with your teammates and leading the team and things of that nature. Like you said, when this limit is holding you back, how you get them across is not just telling them what to do.
No. I mean, we could spend an whole episode
That's true.
Talking about that, but just very quickly, just getting back to the chair, one of the previous chats that we had, Randy, we spoke about the subconscious mind, how we use it. 95% of the time, that we're on this autopilot mode. And so this is one of the key things when it comes to making change. We get all excited about it, but then people enroll in the gym, people sort of get excited about lots of things, but then before they know it, it's like we've got this big rubber band wrapped around them, and the other end of the rubber band is connected to your subconscious mind. And it just keeps on pulling you back to the familiar. It keeps on pulling you back to what you're certain about. And one of the things is you've got to be able to cut that rubber band and release yourself from what you're certain about. Because you end up with this little sort of like dichotomy where you're too scared to go ahead, but you don't want to go back, but you don't want to stay where you are. It's like trying to mix oil and water together. It'll never ever happen. So now you've got this tug of war going on. This is one of the things that wears us out when we get to this point of being fearful, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I hope they don't. I hope they don't want to. They don't force me to do it. You end up with this tug of war and this overwhelm, and your chemistry and your neurocircuitry just ends up, going crazy.
Yeah, and that is cool, and that is so common and applicable in our modern day environments and all that kind of stuff. When you're leading teams and things of that nature, it's not just going back to rote academic stuff, school kind of things, but it's how you're really connecting with different people. And the other part of it is, and you kind of implied this a couple of times, is that everybody you interact with, everybody you connect with, everybody that you work with is a little different. And you know what? How do you really connect with them in a way that help them overcome that boundary and that limitation?
Yeah. Just on that note, there's a great exercise. I haven't incorporated it into my program yet, but I went to this seminar once, and it was a work seminar, and the guy leading it, it was sort of like you had to break up into groups, and there was like 3 or 4 people in the group, and you had to these were all work colleagues, and you had to ask them 3 questions like, where did they come from, what was their favorite hobby, I forget what the third one was. There's 3 questions.
Yeah.
And just by having it, and you're allowed 2 or 3 minutes to chat to, ask the person these questions. The insight that came out of that simple exercise is, I never knew you were from another part of the world, or I never knew that you grew up as a homeless kid, or whatever the answer.
Yeah.
But in a very short period of time, you got an insight into somebody that you've been working with for years that you just hadn't taken the time to communicate with.
Cool.
There's lots of exercises that happen in workshops, but that's been one of the better ones. But,
and go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, off you go.
I was just going to say, and that is very key and cool with what you're talking about. No 2 ways about it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. What?
No, I was just going to say, I always I don't want to leave people with, gee, that was a great chat with Randy. I really like leaving people with something that they can go away and go, you know what, I'm going to give that a try. And one of the things that really has helped me is that if you just look at learning like it's a wiring program, and you can just test yourself. You do something for a day, and the brain will start making new neurocircuitry. It'll start making connections. And
Yeah.
if you start in the morning and just review it in the evening, you'll understand that. I didn't know anything about that this morning. It could be, I don't know, memorizing a speech, or it could be memorizing anything.
Cool.
The brain works really quickly just by wiring. And if you understand that principle, that, I can't do it, I've never been good at writing, I've never been a good speaker, I've never been, good at this, then you can start overcoming this hurdle by understanding it's just a matter of process and time. The brain will make the connections. You've just got to put the work in.
Cool. Well, listen, Steve, it's a great topic. It's a good point. And I know we're about out of time. So let me let you make any kind of summary comments you want to. And then we'll, say goodbye to the people watching, and we'll get ready for the next one.
Well, I suppose just to wrap it up, just remember that, fear and doubt are not real. It's just a program that we've created in our mind. They might feel real to you, but you can overcome them. Just if you're going to try and attempt something, you want to experience stepping outside of the terror barrier where all the freedom is. Like, your life changes when you step outside of the terror barrier. Just start setting yourself small goals.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take the big bite at once. Make sure you've got people around you that support you. And one of the other things that I've learned over the years, try not to, if there's something you really want to achieve, just be careful who you tell it to, because there'll be the naysayers, there'll be the people that will talk you out of it, and they'll want to pull you back, not only where you're familiar, but where they're familiar with you.
Yeah.
And of course the other thing is, I think this applies, whenever we get in those fearful states, our breathing changes, and you'll know, well, I know you actually in your line of work, and Randy, you've probably heard about this, but the US Special Ops training, they teach the soldiers, whenever they get into a panic or fearful state, to breathe. And if you start breathing properly, because when you're fearful, you constrict your breathing. Start breathing, and your brain will come alive again, and you'll feel more energized to move forward. That sort of wraps up my tips.
Cool. Well, it's a great topic, and it is very applicable for leading teams in a challenging environment. So, again, honored to have you on. I know this is Executive Coach Randy Swaim on my show, and very honored again to have Stephen Wood on it. And I know we're going to be on for another show or two here at least, and I welcome that. I'm very honored to have you on, Steve, and to be a colleague relative to neuroscience and just leadership and all of that. So very honored to have you here, and we'll definitely look forward to having you on again.
Thanks so much, Randy. I look forward to it.
Okay, and wish all the people that watch it a happy day.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down,
It's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.